Yes, folks, it's Tales from the Jails with John G. Sutton. Thanks for watching this channel. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and all the rest of it. And I'm going to talk today a bit about celebrity and big name inmates. You know, the names that come in from gangland and all that, like the Cray twins, the Richardsons, and Frankie Fraser, etc. And some names from the world of celebrity. You know, like famous pop singers like Gary Glitter or Paul Gadd. I mean, everybody asks you questions about that, you know. Oh, how would Gary Glitter go on in prison? He would have to keep a low profile because people would be expecting him to find money. He'd be offered protection, of course, but don't forget he's a child molester. And he's going to be needing protection. So he very likely is going to be paying somebody to look after him. That's certainly what happened. I mean, if you cast your minds back about 20 years, there was a man called Owen Oyston who was in prison. He owned, what was it, Blackpool Football Club. Owned a big estate agents and property and all that. Owen Oyston, he was imprisoned for sexually molesting girls, females. Don't know if they were underage or not, but I got the impression that there was something along those lines. And he was imprisoned, I believe it was in Garth, which is a prison in Leyland. And apparently, from what I heard from people who work there, he was paying quite a substantial amount of money to be protected by the resident hard men. He had a couple of bouncers who looked over him all the time to protect him. I mean, he must have been terrified he was going to get beaten up. I mean, that's the problem, isn't it? You get famous, you get rich, and you've got no experience of being in altercations or anything like that. So you're going to be frightened, aren't you? I mean, in my case, you know, I've been battling all my life. Thankfully, at this age, I've managed to stop. Although I sometimes forget that I'm an old man, you know. Seriously, I was in a pub not too long ago, and this big fella at the bar was shouting abuse at the landlady, you know, the lady behind the bar. Get me an effing drink and all this, that, and the other. I just shouted across the bar to him, "Hey, one more word like that and you can pick your window. I'll throw you through, the bastard." He jumped up. My wife said to me, "John, your walking stick's under the table." I'd forgotten I was an old cripple, you see. Yeah. Anyway, he just jumped up, looked at me, it wasn't to like what he saw, and shouted, "You fat bastard," and he ran out the pub. Yeah. So seriously. But anyway, when you get celebrities in, they're not accustomed to handling trouble or anything like that, so they pay people to protect them. I've met a few who were very similar to that. There was a racing driver came in when I was working at the Scrubs. It's recounted in my book, by the way, and I highly recommend that you read that. He tried to give me direct orders, you know. "Oh, come along, officer, you've been wasting your time. I've been standing here for the last 2 hours and waiting for you to find me a cell. What on earth's going on?" All that nonsense. He ended up getting locked in with the paraffin lamps. Not by my choice, by the way, because I just referred him to a senior officer, said, "See that guy there, go and complain to him, he's my superior officer." Right, so he did, and that's how he got locked up with the paraffin lamps. It didn't last long, by the way. It didn't last over an hour. Hey, we can imagine, can't you? You know, the paraffin lamps, the tramps, yeah, doubly incontinent, yeah. Out their minds completely. Yeah, they put him in there. The story is in my book. Yeah, seriously. Anyway, other celebrities that I met. There was one guy. In fact, I'm going to play you a little excerpt from my book on the audio version about the guy called George Davis. Now, George Davis was a villain. You know, a notorious East End villain, knocked around with the Cray twins and the Richardsons and all that lot. But he was basically not much of a blagger himself. He was more like the driver. So he would drive all the villains in, and they'd go and do the jobs, and then he'd drive them out again. He used to do mini-cabbing, yeah, George Davis. But it was a real character, a real affable. I could see why he was popular, but Roger Daltrey of The Who had a T-shirt that he wore on stage. Free George Davis, yeah. Seriously. It was all over the country. Anyway, I'm just going to play that at the end. Basically, big name villains, when they get in, they get treated with the respect that they have already earned on the streets. You know, the likes of Tony Lambriano and all that. Number of serious armed robbers. I mean, the problem is they're in prison, aren't they? I mean, so they're not all that brilliantly successful. Same as I keep mentioning Frankie Fraser, but he'd spent 30, 40 years of his life in prison. How successful is that? I mean, the one guy that was, in my opinion, who had done it and didn't do a lot of time was Terry Sinclair. You know, the handless corpse, when they chopped the hands off the corpse and dumped it into the Eccleston Delph quarry. Well, the leader of that gang was Terry Sinclair, a multi-millionaire. He had a yacht, property in New Zealand, money all over the world. And he was in strange ways, offering £1 million to anybody who could get him out. Well, he was subsequently moved to, I think it was Birmingham prison, where he supposedly died of a heart attack, found at 4 o'clock in the morning by the chief officer, the governor, and the number one medical officer. I mean, what's the odds on that? Yeah? Of the chief being in at 4 o'clock in the morning, and the governor being in. And as for the senior medical officer, at 4 o'clock in the morning, no chance. But I think Terry Sinclair did a deal. And but I know he wasn't dead because I knew his solicitor. I knew him because he was a friend of my brother's who came to my house one evening, and said, was talking about infamous inmates, and I happened to mention Terry Sinclair and how he was dead. He said, if he's dead, he said, how come I don't know? He said, I'm his solicitor and I deal with all his financial affairs. So there you go. I believe he'd done a deal, shipped a load of people down the river and taken his witness protection plan and gone. So that's it, you see. But when they come in, these celebrity inmates, generally speaking, they're terrified because they're big names, you see. I mean, when Keith Richards got locked up at the Scrubs, on his way into the Scrubs through reception, they snatched him and cut his hair. Have you heard that old rhyme? Cut it long, cut it short, cut it with a knife and fork. Well, that's what they used to do at the Scrubs. Grab them, hold them down, get a fork, stick the fork into the air, turn it round and then cut it off. I believe he looked a right mess when they'd finished with him. Such is life, eh? Anyway, I'm going to play. That's the rattle for today. I'm going to play a little extract from my book, this book here, yeah? Oh, by the way, for all you I've read this already, part 2 will be published in July, I believe, so the publisher tells me. They're going to do the audio and the Kindle version and the paperback, and it's got the same cover on, but it says part 2, and the font will be in blue instead of red. So, and they're getting the same guy to do the audio, which is a man called Alan Turton. He's reading the audio book. And here is an extract from my book, HMP Manchester Prison Officer. This is from chapter 17, talking about the infamous George Davis.
Chapter 17, The Sweeney. I was soon back on duty at the Scrubs, patrolling Sea Wing, making a living as a prison officer. On my landing, there was a celebrity inmate whose name and image had been all over the media. On TV, front pages of the press, with banner headlines stating, "George Davis is innocent." Supporters of this convicted prisoner had even dug up the Test cricket pitch at Headingley in Yorkshire. Roger Daltrey, the lead singer of pop supergroup The Who, had appeared on stage wearing a T-shirt supporting the Free George Davis campaign. Davis was claiming that the CID in London had fitted him up. That is, according to him, the police had fabricated a case against him and planted evidence. I spoke with George Davis, and he was a larger-than-life character, full of stories about his East End gangster friends such as the Richardsons and the Crays. He told me that the case in question, the armed robbery of the London Electricity Board offices at Ilford on the 4th of April 1974, was nothing to do with him. He claimed the police had planted evidence, some samples of his blood they'd previously taken, to secure a conviction. Davis was, he said, well and truly fitted up by certain CID officers who were determined to have him imprisoned. When I asked him why, he laughed and told me that the police knew he was bang at it, doing robberies all around London, but couldn't prove anything, so they had, said George Davis, stitched him up. Davis was popular with his fellow inmates, and I could see why so many were supporting him. He was funny, interesting and gregarious, as well as being a seriously connected villain. There was a letter waiting for me when I arrived home from my duties at the Scrubs one day.
Yeah, that's my little bit in the book about George Davis. And he was a very funny character. Yeah, and now before we go, I want to read you a poem from my book. Yeah. This is my book here, yeah. There you go. Flowers and Collected Poems. This is a poem that I wrote for my friend's father, who was killed in an accident. He was hit on a zebra crossing, no fault of his own. It took him about 2 years to die, but he eventually did, and he was in his 60s when he died. He didn't want to go, he was a very good family man, and this is how I felt he would have looked back from the spirit world on the first few days of his transition. And this poem is called I Was Gone. I was gone this morning when I looked in the mirror to comb my hair. In the living room I searched. There was no one in my chair. I was gone this afternoon when I tried to dry your tears. It's so hard to see you crying for those long ago years. I was gone this evening as you went to climb the stair. Then you turned but didn't see me, my footsteps trod the air. I was gone in the moonlight as the silent silver shone. Then I heard you whisper my name, but I was gone. There you are. I Was Gone by John G. Sutton. I'm about to go myself. So don't forget to like, subscribe and all the rest of it. This is Tales from the Jails and my book is on Amazon. Thank you, folks.